All right, we're live now. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on Inner Join. I'm your host, Shinji Kim, founder of SelectStar. SelectStar is an enterprise data catalog, lineage, and governance platform. And on Inner Join, I explore a particular data management topic with a guest. And today I have June Dershewitz with me today, who is a data leader and investor in the space. I am really excited to have her on the show. So, June, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Shinji.
Awesome. So, I always start in our journey with this question. How did you get into data and how did you end up where you are today?
Oh my gosh, it's a long story. I'll give you the short one. I've spent my entire professional career working in data analytics. I got my first job working as a data analyst at a startup here in San Francisco in 1999. And I kind of fell into that by accident. I was a software engineer at the time, but I knew SQL and I was curious about how the business worked. And someone saw that potential in me and said, "Do you want to be a data analyst?" And I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And it stuck. So I've been doing that my entire career. Spent some time working as an individual contributor, then moved into consulting. I was in data related consulting for about 7 years, and then went back to the practitioner side, this time as a leader, building and leading teams of people who did marketing analytics, product analytics, data engineering, data science. And just about 9 years ago, I joined a large tech company that's headquartered in Seattle, and I've been there in the media and entertainment division, again, building and leading teams of people who do data stuff. And so that brings me where I am today.
Awesome. I don't think that I've met many people that started their data, uh, I guess, professional journey back in 1999.
Yeah.
What database do you query in 1999?
Oh my gosh. I was, well, okay, this wasn't 99, but it was in like the mid 2000s. I was, or maybe early 2000s, I was an Oracle 9i certified database
Mm,
administrator. So something I was proud of at the time. But I feel like things have really come a long way.
for sure, yeah, good old Oracle, and
Yeah.
um, I was a and I don't want to call it data scientist, but a data scientist in today's term,
Uh-huh.
but because my role was a statistical analyst, I
Uh-huh.
was writing R, but the
Oh.
main database that I was using mostly was MySQL and Oracle as well.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
so I mean, I kind of got to know your data journey and a lot of the work that you've done in the space through the um, newsletter that you started writing early this year, which I
Mhm.
found very helpful. And one of the themes that I feel like continue to come up throughout different posts were about data quality. I feel like it's a topic that affects a lot of different people. There are different aspects of data quality, whether it's coming from the implementation or how to describe and make sure it's communicated well as how it's being perceived in the organization. So I would love to learn a little bit more from how you have dealt with what we call data quality in the real world in all the companies that you've worked at in the past.
Mhm.
So for you, when somebody asks what is data quality, how do you describe data quality? Like, what would you say?
Yeah. So I know there are different dimensions of data quality that are fairly widely known. I think some of them I find to be fairly obscure, but there are a couple of them that really resonate with me as the kinds of things that people care about and that I care about with respect to data quality. And those are correctness and completeness, right? And I say this as a data consumer or a representative of lots of data consumers. Data quality means for me that the data that we're using means what we think it means and doesn't have gaps in it in the past. If it has holes in it in the past, we're missing something important. If it doesn't mean what we think it means, we're going to draw false conclusions from it, and that's bad. But whenever I'm talking to a person in a professional setting about what data quality is, I do often have to level set with them first, because it tends to be kind of like a personal perception. Just because I say something has to do with data, is related to data quality, it may not exactly match what the person at the other end is talking about. It may be that, like, oh, there's two different similarly named metrics in use in our business, and they don't mean exactly the same thing. And that for them might be a representation of poor data quality. I don't think it is. I don't think that is part of fits within the definition of data quality, but sometimes you have to ask.
Yeah, for sure. Then what do you consider as, you mentioned earlier, correctness and completeness. So how do you define that correctness of data quality?
So I'll say this, I'll frame this as an example in product analytics, which has been my world for the past few years. If you're product analytics, I think involves like working with digital engagement data, understanding how customers are interacting with your product or features within your product, and if you have poor data quality there, it could be that you have gaps in your understanding of how your customers are engaging with your product, if you've not fully instrumented something that you need, or maybe you've incorrectly, you like the royal you, have incorrectly instrumented something that you need, and so that the signals that you're getting from the product don't actually match with what the customers are doing. For instance, maybe you have an attribute and it's passing the wrong value, and so that would be incorrect.
Got it. So would you say then the correctness comes from almost like the definition of the metrics and how it's put together, whereas completeness comes from each like atomic like level of data values, whether it is like up to date and has it has everything filled in, things like that?
Almost. I think I agree with you on the correctness part. I think yeah, as I say, you bring up a really good point there, that like you need to have requirements that describe what well-formed data is to know whether or not it is correct. It's helpful to do that, and so correctness is that the data that's actually flowing through matches the requirements that you have for it, right?
Yeah.
I don't, and in the completeness part, yes, it can be, if you break it down into all the atomic parts, all those parts exist, but it can also be, it could be, if you think about like, say in marketing analytics, you'll have a marketing funnel that shows, customer journey, how people arrive at a digital property. And maybe you're missing a key step in that marketing funnel, like you have a blind spot in your instrumentation for some reason, and you can't calculate a stepwise conversion rate, or you can calculate it, but it's incorrect. And so that's where I think completeness becomes a factor in data quality.
Got it. Then I feel like on both sides, the requirements of the data is actually critical, like to
Yeah.
really say whether even this is correct and or complete.
Yes, definitely. I
So
mean, I think there's another aspect of completeness too that's purely a technical one,
right.
which is you're expecting data to flow through your pipeline regularly and not fail. And if it fails, you're going to make sure that it eventually gets filled. And so sometimes completeness can come up because there was a pipeline failure and nobody noticed until later. And then if you break it down into event volume per hour or something, you'll see some holes there due to pipeline failures, and that's different.
Yeah, for sure. So then is there a certain traits where you see that, oh, this organization, this team has and manages a fairly good quality, good standards of quality? What does that look like in an organization?
I see a wide variety. I think that the people that I talk to, p- people tend to be fairly self-critical of their own organization's ability to manage data well,
Yeah,
and
we just always like complaining about because we see so many gaps just
I
on our
know.
own for sure.
I gave a talk at a conference a really long time ago, and it touched on data quality, and there was Q&A, and somebody asked me like, how do you manage problems with data quality? And I said, oh, I don't have any problems with data quality, and I got a big laugh from the crowd. It was like, no, nobody has no problems with data quality, but I do think that there are examples of organizations that do it really well, surely based out of need. I think if a business has a really good understanding of the risks that can come from low quality data, then they'll make an investment in making sure they don't have low quality data. And from what I've seen, it tends to happen not completely across the board, but in pockets, depending on where those risks or perceived risks are. Because this is one of the kind of frustrating things about data quality. It's not impossible to solve, but if you're going to solve it with people power, it tends to be really expensive, right? And so sometimes if there is a major risk and business leadership understands that risks and will do whatever it takes to overcome it, they'll stand up a whole team and say, this team is responsible for ensuring high quality data. And that's where it can work. I'll say it works really well. It's expensive, but it yields really good results.
So I think people get afraid of like when they hear it's a big effort, it's
Mm-hmm.
expensive, it's gonna take some time or serious, Uh,
Yeah.
do you feel like data quality as an initiative has to be taken with that
Mm.
kind of seriousness or approach? Otherwise, it doesn't
Oh.
usually happen. Or is there like a way to kind of like do it like we like a kind of a step by step but more
Mm-hmm.
gradual approach?
Yeah. I think that often in the beginning, and I think that I mean, I speak for just myself and the people who I've talked to lately, that we're not at the beginning, that I think that there's like general awareness that has been raised for the importance of data quality. So
Yeah.
it's not like, oh my God, I've never investigated this before. But in the beginning, I think that it may take kind of a step change in investment or energy or something to get off the ground and get started. But
Mhm.
after that, it's definitely something that I believe that the best approach is iterative.
Yep.
And for me, that's grounded in the importance that I place on continuous improvement, right? And so if you see something's gone wrong, you first of all, you like figure out what's going wrong, you stem it, you correct it, and then you figure out what went wrong, and then you figure out how to prevent the general case from occurring in the future. And if you make a pattern out of that, then eventually you can get to the point where you're not having certain kinds of regressions and failures because you have come to anticipate them. But
Yep.
that can take years.
Yeah. So let's say our organization decide to take an uh, a better approach for data quality. This is our, let's say, quarterly putting it onto our OKR. What are the steps or the frameworks that we should take to make data quality better if we were to start from scratch? We are aware of the needs, and
Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of different things that we could do, but where should we start? What are the important aspects
Mm-hmm.
of implementing data quality that you would recommend?
Yeah, from the beginning. I think the place that I would start is where you started this interview, which is asking people what they think data quality means, and to make
Mm.
sure that you have alignment on the problem that you're trying to solve. And
mm,
because I think then,
mm,
with data quality, you get always people love to complain, oh my gosh, data quality is so bad. But it's some of it is just the perception of data quality. So understanding how what is driving the perception of low quality data can be a good starting point for investigating the kinds of things to prioritize for when you're first starting out. Um, but beyond that, um, there are some things uh, that I recommend doing, even if in the beginning, even if they seem like kind of like a manual chore. I think it's a phase that a company might have to pass through. And one of those is keeping a log of data quality problems that have arisen. And maybe it's just a Google sheet to begin with, or maybe it's a Jira project or something. But if you don't have a list of those problems in one place, it also makes it really hard to talk about, and people will have different recollections of, oh, there's a really bad thing and it happened a year and a half ago, and I can't remember which team was responsible for it or how long. And just clear all that ambiguity away, make a list. And so once you have that list, then it gives you something more concrete to work off of and point at, and also look at the kind of the patterns of failure. Are there certain kinds of things that tend to go wrong over and over again? Are there certain kinds of things that cause more serious business problems as a result? And even if there aren't lots of them, if there are only a few of them, but they're extremely catastrophic, that could also be a good place to start. And so that's where I would say that's like the beginning spot. There's a lot of stuff that can and should happen after that. But I'll stop for a minute.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really helpful point to kind of like start from aligning everybody's understanding and goal
Hmm.
of what are we actually going to fix
Hmm.
by for data quality. So you mentioned ask people.
Hmm.
Who should we ask? Uh, my guess is it's both the data team and the stakeholders, the internal customers of the data team, would you say?
Yeah, that's a good starting point. I would probably put some finer gradations on that. Data team, they're going to have the most subject matter expertise with actually evaluating the data and understanding whether or not it means what we think it means, and holding all the lore, even if it's not written down, about where things have gone wrong and what problems it's caused. But they also we can be kind of biased sometimes in like, oh, there's this massive problem, and it was causing such disturbances. But if the only disturbances it was really causing was that the data team needed to invest more time than they wanted in data hygiene, I know that's bad and that's inefficient. But if they were able to overcome the problem and smooth things over and still produce good insights and recommendations that could be used to inform business decisions, then it's not terrible, but it tends to be kind of invisible. On the business stakeholder side, we're going to get a different story, because they're going to have a different perspective on receipt of the insights and the recommendations and the reports that the data team will produce, and they might have a different perception of, like, this was a really bad incident over here, or, oh, you thought that was a bad incident, I never even noticed that it was a problem, right? um, and and different levels in the stakeholder organization as well. And that will depend on the strength of data culture within your business. But it can be extremely helpful and powerful if you've already convinced executives that data is important, to
Mhm,
find out where they think low quality data is. And something I tend to do fairly regularly in my own business setting, when I'm talking to someone who's more senior than me and they mention something about low quality data, I'll say, well, actually, I didn't see that problem. Can you explain to me what happened, or can you forward me an email chain where this data quality problem was raised and discussed? And I'll get something. And then I can understand from someone else's perspective where discussions are being had about low quality data that may not be visible to me, right? So I'd say executives on the stakeholder side, for sure, they're important to ask, like, what problems can we be solving here? And then the on the ground stakeholders, like the people who are like, I'm taking your insights and recommendations and I'm using those to drive business action. And if they're facing frustration because they're either making decisions based on flawed data and it comes to their attention after they have made that decision, which is terrible, or something gets held up because low quality data is actually preventing them from making a decision, that can be super frustrating. And that frustration, especially if it's across like lots of people, can well up into general unhappiness. So it's important to find that. The
Yeah.
last group that I'll mention, and you did
Mhm.
not mention, is the people upstream from all this, like
Mm.
managers of data platforms or data producers throughout your company. And I think like a really healthy, mature approach to data quality actually very much actively involves data producers and data
Mm.
platform owners. And yet, in the beginning, when people start to approach data quality and talk about what could be done to correct it, it may start on the stakeholder side, because as data consumers, they're unable to do something, or they're doing something that's wrong, and that wells up into frustration.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times it's the like how the data quality is perceived on the consumer side. So
Mm-hmm.
how would you like what would you want to try to get out of when you're interviewing on the producer side to understand how they view data quality?
Well, I might even ask, are you, as a producer, aware of um, the requirements that should be used when shaping the data that you produce? And do you have checks in place to ensure that the data you're producing follows those requirements?
Mm-hmm.
And if it fails to meet those requirements, what are you doing as a
Yeah. Do you get
result?
an alert or
Are
yeah,
you
like the
are you
job fails?
stopping the pipeline, or
Yeah.
like what? And they might say, I have no clue,
Mm.
and well, that's your starting point, right?
Yeah.
Or they might say, oh, I mean, I get these requirements, but I don't really understand them, and so I honor them the best I can. Or, and so those are really, it's a really important group to get through to and understand.
Yeah, so it sounds like within the realm of data quality, even
Hmm.
to figure out whether this is a more of like it because in order to prioritize and figure out like what do we work on first,
Hmm.
it could be that we need to work on, having a clear definition of metrics so that each of there are critical data like element type of components that we are defining and making sure that things are in place versus there could be more of an initiative around data quality still, but about tracking and mitigating any technical issues that may come through on the sourcing side of the data.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think what you're beginning to get at here is the framework that I've written about, and that I often use when I frame different kinds of data quality work. It's being like three distinct and separate types. There's prevention, there's detection, and there's resolution. And each area involves completely separate kinds of tactics. And in the beginning, especially, it may be necessary to spend the majority of time on resolution. Just because if you don't even have a list of what your problems are, then you don't even know where to start. If you have the list, then you're going to find that there are many things that exist in the wild and are continuing on unresolved. And so lingering data quality problems can be a real issue. And so figuring out how to reduce the time to resolution for data quality problems might be a thing that you need to focus on quite a bit in the beginning. And then you can push it upstream. You say, how can we improve data quality alarms so we can catch things faster, so the time to detect reduces? And then how can we push things upstream even further, putting more ownership and responsibility in the hands of the data producers to say, how can we ensure, what all can we do to ensure that we have the highest quality possible data flowing in to begin with from the source? And then if you do that really, really well, and in an ideal state, you don't even need to fund effort to improve resolution
Yep.
because you won't have much to resolve.
Yep. Makes sense. So I guess I have a side question on this. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like a lot of the mm, I don't want to call it complaints, but like if you were to ask what could be better about your experience of using data to executives
Mm-hmm.
or more business stakeholders, they actually don't necessarily have a problem with kind of underlying data quality. But
Mm-hmm.
what they would say is, I want the dashboard to load faster,
Mm-hmm.
or I want to be able to slice and dice data easier, but then we don't have enough, filters, or every time I want to do that, I need to ask a data analyst, and that takes like 2 days. Um,
Mm-hmm.
would you say that is uh, that should be considered as symptom of data quality issues, or something completely different, or like an adjacent?
I think there's um, I think that there's this overlap area between self-service enablement
Mhm,
and data quality that and it tends to manifest as this thing where there's like two opposing forces. On one side, you have like standardization and governance, and on the other side, you have like uh, uh, openness, so that like everyone can be agile and answer questions on their own as quickly as they need. And and so that like with standardization on one side and agility on the other side, they come into conflict with one another because standardization almost always, I think, will slow things down.
mhm, mhm.
If you're going to create a new process, or you're going to create checks, or you're going to say we have to have code reviews, or you're going to, do all this stuff before you make data available in a self-service platform, then it's going to frustrate people. So you're like, I just need it faster. But if you say, okay, this is good enough, say it's 80% of the way there, and we're going to go light on standardization and governance, we're just going to pass it through and open it up to our ravenous self-service audience, then they might make misinformed decisions, right? And so they might be, usually they would be happier because they can go in and freely ask and answer questions on their own using data in a self-service platform. But some of the decisions they might be making are wrong, right? So it's a fine balance.
Yep, yep, for sure. Um, Yeah, that's certainly very helpful. Um, are there any examples that you can share from your previous experiences of how a team has approached data quality and implemented like through a certain time period and what that looked like?
Sure. So I'm gonna give you an example that I learned about at a conference. It was quite a while ago, but it was in beginning learning phase about data quality as well, and it stuck with me
Hmm.
over the years. And it had to do with it was a healthcare example, and so it's a major healthcare company, and they had an incident involving low quality data that made it all the way out into the public. In the press, you see a
Oh,
headline about some business problem. There was a direct result of low quality data, and it was that inspired the CEO to stand up and fund a team of people to address data quality. And it wasn't like address all data quality problems in the company. It had specifically to do with the kind of data that was at the center of this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so that when I saw this talk, it was about later on how this division in this healthcare company had achieved high quality data for the data sets that were core to their business because they got executive buy-in to solve that problem. And so I thought that was a powerful story because, I mean, it's terrible that sometimes it could take like a headline in a newspaper before an executive will say, this is a problem that I'm willing to fund to solve. But also, I think many of us can take a lighter approach in our own businesses to say, let's just do a risk assessment. What is the risk of low quality data? And for certain kinds of issues. And for areas where there is a great deal of risk, and then we need to advocate for ensuring that we have extremely high quality data there. And so I think the approaches that I've seen work really well in companies where there's like a kind of a tiered system where you have this kind of data has to be extremely well formed because there is great risk associated with it. Either it's going to make our customers unhappy, or it's going to cause us financial damage or reputation damage, whatever that is. And then there's a middle tier where it can cause some damage that we have to acknowledge and get ahead of. And then there's kind of the Wild West. And maybe maybe we can sort out the Wild West eventually through just the adoption of the best practices that have been established for the other tiers of data. But you got to get to those first. And so I think to summarize this, the companies that I've seen that do a great job with data quality are the ones that do everything they need to ensure that the data that they have is fit for purpose, right? Whatever that means. And they know what that means, and they're willing to fund it.
Got it. I think that gets us to kind of like the next topic, which is around kind of what does investment in data quality like in terms of business perspective. I so from your previous example of the healthcare company, so the PR that came out, was it based on how they were either fined or they made wrong decisions because of data quality, or was their quote unquote wrong data just like publicly got out to some of their reports or something like that?
I don't want to speak for this, the
Oh, but
person
if
that
there is a
presented it.
talk, I would love to maybe link
Yeah,
to the talk. Sure.
it was probably 10 years ago, so it would take me a while to dig up. I'll
Oh,
afterwards
okay.
I'll try to find it. I know what conference it was at. It was actually, I'm not sure this conference series exists anymore, but it was specific to data quality. I
Oh,
spent
there was
I,
a data quality specific
I was
conference 10
it
years
was
ago.
yeah, I mean it was
That's
well,
amazing.
no, it's no, it was I was at my current employer, but I was very early on there, so maybe it was 8 years ago.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, I spent 3 days at a conference just talking about data quality,
That sounds like a
just
great one
learning
and
about
that
data
we should
quality.
bring back if it doesn't exist anymore.
I'll
Uh,
find out. I'll follow up with you.
so you mentioned that it's still like worthwhile of an effort to do like a risk assessment of what having data quality would may entail in a
Mm-hmm.
business. When should data teams do that? Usually, data teams are very busy with
Yeah.
pushing out the data products and work
Mm-hmm.
to deliver work. This is usually considered to be more kind of like infrastructure, horizontal,
Mm-hmm.
quality of life, performance improvement type of work. So,
Mm-hmm.
when do you think is a good timing for data team to do this
Mm-hmm.
before it's too late?
Before it's too late. Okay. And it may be, as I've mentioned a couple of times, that the catalyst comes when something bad has happened already, and
Right.
that'll get you like partway there, but it's not a complete assessment. I think one thing that I would really recommend um, is working to define like uh, the um, a severity framework for data quality issues that everyone agrees on. And I know this doesn't directly answer your question. Like, when is the team ever going to find time for this? So the time that a data team and adjacent participatory teams will find time to uh, develop a framework for the severity of data quality issues may come when there are disagreements about the urgency that data issues need to get handled. Um, and that's either urgency related to um, troubleshooting and triage. Like, if you don't know the cause of the problem yet, it can linger, often does. Or resolution, like you've identified the data producing team that is responsible for the problem that you have identified, but they're maybe not correcting it as quickly as you believe it is merited, right? And so if you get those slowdowns, then having an agreed upon framework for severity can be
Mm.
extremely helpful. And that takes work, and it takes buy-in to like articulate what that is and to get the different parties to agree on that framework. But I've actually done that not too long ago, and it's been a really helpful tool for us.
Got it. And the severity, would that be kind of more on the based on the impact to the business?
Hmm. Yeah. Like, is there a financial impact above a certain threshold? And that's a certain severity that it maps to that. Does it impact a business KPI that the CFO cares about
Mm,
above a certain threshold?
mhm,
And so you're like just very specific. It's this set of business KPIs in this report that goes
mhm.
to these executives every month. And if a KPI in that report is affected by something more than a certain threshold, it gets a certain severity, and there's no question about that. Or it's an important KPI that gets used for A/B testing and experimentation, and if it's invalid,
Mhm.
it could throw things off.
Yep.
Um, and then at the bottom, there's like the everything else.
Yeah.
And that's where like the data team, you might have one member of the data team who's like, oh, my data is so low quality. But if they look at this framework for severity, you can
Yep.
have them say, like, where does this fall? And they'll say, actually, it's in the everything else category. Say,
Yep.
okay, then be patient. It's
Yep.
not a great answer, but and you can't prioritize everything.
Yeah. No, I think it totally makes sense. So yeah, I mean, because like the part that I feel like a lot of the things that come with data quality when you are representing data quality in the business perspective is uh goes down to how we can reduce the time on debugging, how we
Mhm.
can minimize or yeah, lessen the risk of wrong data.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if there's a like if there are other side of data quality that's more on the additive positive side on investment rather than oh
Mhm.
we're, you know we can fix things faster, whether it could be
Yeah.
yeah, if there's like a certain like uh ROI or a metric that you would look at as more of like that's more yeah, like revenue driven or um because I feel like it always
Mhm.
comes down to that, yeah, risk of like but because and the reason why I say this is because a lot of these risks and the time that you spend and the
Yeah.
debugging, this really like becomes anecdotal.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's so critical and it's very bad that we weren't able to resolve this issue within let's say 5 hours, 10 hours. Sometimes, like we resolved it within 2 hours. Depending, it really depends on where that issue happened, right? If
Mhm,
within the
mhm.
pipeline or what type of data it was. And I think it just becomes a little bit tricky when to make a business case for improving or having a investment in data quality when the symptoms are like this.
Yeah. And there's so much about data quality to complain about. I, for some reason, I keep coming back. I still find it to be a good challenge. You started this questioning with some descriptions of different data quality related metrics,
Mm-hmm.
and some of these metrics I think that can be used by a data team to showcase movement and momentum, or maybe just in the beginning scope of the problem for data quality is just like basic like counts, like number of
Mm.
issues, number of issues reported in the last quarter, number of issues resolved in the last quarter, average time to resolve, average time to detect, driving those things down, and those are not dollars, but you could do some math there to say like if the average time to resolve gets reduced from X to Y, then that's an efficiency gain for all the teams that don't have to deal with low quality data or the risk of low quality data for like the not hours, but I would say like the weeks or months or whatever it takes to fix a really gnarly problem. So that can put a positive spin on it. And we're going to get into perhaps more positive data quality metrics. You could look at like the percent of data quality issues that were detected through automated systems versus
Mm-hmm.
manually. And you obviously like you want to tend toward having a high percentage of data quality issues be detected through alerting and automated systems so that you can get them quickly, and so that you're not spending human effort. And also, as perhaps a softer way to think about it, like what you really want to do is reduce the number of instances where your business stakeholders are the ones coming to you and saying, hey, can you look at this dashboard? Because this data doesn't look right. And it turns out that you had a quality problem that you didn't know about until it was pointed out to you by someone on the business side. That's bad,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so
for sure.
it can't all be about cost savings, but I think that's a lot of what the framing is.
Yeah, got it. So then, are there any like particular business case that you've seen, maybe in a certain like product analytics use case, or industry perspective, where you have seen data quality to be more critical than, let's say, like executive reporting?
More critical than executive reporting. Okay, so I think first of all, I'll say the criticality of data quality and executive reporting is directly related to how much your executives actually care about using data, right? And in some cases, like there's a lot of work to be done there with making
Mm,
sure that executives are looking at the right metrics at the right cadence and taking them seriously when
mhm,
making decisions. And so. Assuming that 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 you've got that, then I would say that like executive reporting is actually pretty important. But above that, um, if it is something that flows into, I imagine, like directly into a customer facing application, and that and the low quality data is exposed to the end customers of your business, that's incredibly
yep,
bad,
yep,
but I say is like a representative of a data team that, in my experience, the kinds of teams responsible for exposing data to end customers may not actually be the same teams that are responsible for insight generation and business recommendations and A/B testing and all that. I think that maybe it may depend on the size of the company and like the organizational structure overall, but this is something I've chatted with other people about recently too. Like there's like say that you're going to make a dashboard for your end customers that exposes some kind of quantitative data to them, that may exist in the product organization, right?
Yep.
And they're using the data set that they're using as a source may, although it will have common ancestors at some point with the data that like a data science and analytics team might use within a business, it's
Yeah.
different. Anyways, I'm rambling a little bit there. At the top, though, I would say it's financial impact, whatever shape
Yep.
and form that may take, depending on your business. And I mean, probably talking to the finance team about where they see the most risk in the data that's flowing through their systems is probably a good place to start. And as far as I'll take it. But if you have low quality there, it can be extremely damaging. On the positive side, I guess it's pretty easy to quantify that. You say, hey, like we
Yep.
had a regression in data quality, and it cost our business this much.
Yep. Yep. For sure. I think
And
whenever there is a data product that is like externally facing,
mm-hmm,
uh, that also has some dependency to the recency of data. So like
mm-hmm,
real-time data flow and the feed is
yeah,
important. And I think this happens a lot in like in finance. It also happens a lot in advertising. If you have real,
mm-hmm,
like I worked on an ad network
you're
before
right.
where it's important to make sure that like, our like click-through rate or certain like fill rate is at certain
Mm-hmm,
threshold. If it goes out of
yes,
whack, and if that happens because of the original feed of the data, that's really bad.
yeah,
um, we've actually it just reminded me, we actually have a customer, their name's Zometry. They are a manufacturing parts marketplace,
mm-hmm,
and it was critical for them to make sure that their machine learning models run correctly because
mm-hmm,
they do
yeah,
almost real time quoting of
mm-hmm,
prices of parts because it's all very custom. And
yeah,
whenever these pipelines break, like data engineer needs to jump on the phone on call,
mm-hmm,
like at whatever time of the day it is to fix it. Otherwise, I
yeah,
mean, until it gets fixed, they are being they are losing money.
yeah,
And it I feel like this really got them to have their management to fund their effort on having a programmatic
mm-hmm,
access to column level lineage. And
mm-hmm,
that business case was very clear because they were like, it's very clear we are losing millions of dollars a year if we don't fix this because of the amount of time we spend and the time that to fix things every time things happen, downtime happens, and also that gap of time that we are not able to serve customers correctly.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I feel like there are specific cases like this in some industries. So
mm-hmm.
I think it makes sense. But other than that, I agree. Executive reporting because they are making decisions based on what they see
They should
on
be.
the dashboards.
Yeah.
They should be, yes.
There's another category though, and you touched on this a little bit, but I'll just expand on it even more, which is data that flows into targeting and recommendation and personalization
Hmm.
systems,
Yep.
and more in the future stuff that gets used and consumed by AI applications.
Yep.
And I'm still, and I think there are probably lots of examples of personalization gone wrong because data quality was low. But I think that for the AI use case, I'm still waiting for the news headline about how low quality data caused some disaster. I haven't seen it yet. I hear a lot of things about, oh my gosh, it all starts with the data. You have to have high quality data, when you're building an AI based application. But I think I agree that there is risk there. I have not yet seen to my satisfaction case studies about how low quality data has resulted in a major regression for an AI system.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to see some of those cases in the future. I think what we've seen so far has been more of like this company got fined because of low data
Yeah.
quality and not
Hmm.
having enough measurements in place, especially for financial institutions. I
For
think this is
sure.
something that we see in the news. But as more companies are adopting AI and large language models to uh, service their end users, this is definitely going to happen more. I mean, we've
Hmm.
seen some cases where like the companies ended up like issuing some refund, or like
Hmm.
consumers being able to make their way around, but to on their quote unquote customer chatbots, customer
Yeah.
support chatbots. But once AI gets connected to the underlying company data, which will actually help the quality of the automation, but at the same time exposes the company at risk more with data. I think, yeah, we'll definitely see some uh, cases, which will be very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Amazing. So I guess like, are there any particular types of tools, processes that you recommend for teams when they are implementing better data quality management? You mentioned about like, writing down these incidents in Google spreadsheets, defining the severity. I think those are all
Hmm.
very important, which happens in more documentation form in order
Yeah.
to automate a lot of the detection, and also making sure that everybody is aware and understands what the requirements of these data qualities are.
Mhm.
Like, what do you usually recommend? Is there a certain um, like a program management or cadence, or other types of tools that you would say is a kind of like essential for companies to take a look into?
I think that when a company becomes heavily invested in the like the detection category of data quality, that there's a lot there to work with for automation. You don't want manual detection. Manual detection is your data analyst or your business stakeholders like, hey, this chart looks wrong. So automation is essential there. You can do it the scrappy way, or you could do it the robust way, or you could do it the scrappy way to start and then move to the robust way, which is usually what I would recommend. So anybody who uses BI tools today knows that there are alerts that you can set up in your dashboard right now that will send you an email or a Slack message or whatever if your data is out of bounds somehow. I know that's not scientifically rigorous. There are much more fancy things that one could do with anomaly detection, but it's a start, and there's nothing stopping anyone from doing that today. And the same goes with like monitoring on pipelines. Like, do all your ETL jobs have alerts on them, and are they sending them to the right people? They may or may not consider that to be data quality, but I heard you talk about like pipeline failures causing grief, so that I'd mention that. Some of it is just like basic operational excellence. If you have a product and your product happens to be a dashboard or a report or a metric or something, you should make sure that you have alarms on your pipelines, and you have alarms on your metrics, and you have alarms on your dashboards. And so the more advanced mode of that, I think, is a data observability platform. And I think that, I'm not going to name names, but there are some popular ones that have come out in the past few years. And one of the real advantages to managing your data quality detection using a data observability platform is that there's more transparency, I believe, in like when things are going wrong. You could like get more of the holistic view of it, and if I could complain about some BI tools, I'll say sometimes I need to take a data analyst's word for it that they have set up alarms and that they are monitoring those alarms and dealing with the alarms that are serious. With a data observability platform, when it is well established, you have more of a transparent trail to say there were these alarms, the subset of the alarms, these were critical alarms, and they were picked up. They were picked up by these people who worked toward resolution. And here's the ticket, and that I think is a really good thing to strive for.
Yeah, just having the visibility and the transparency of what has happened, so who's looking into it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that is definitely is a helpful understanding, regardless of the organization that they sit in, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, awesome. So we have about 5 minutes left. I guess if anyone is still here, please feel free to shout out any questions for June. Um, I guess my kind of wrap up question for you is, what do you think are kind of like the next, or if there are interesting approaches that you're already seeing in managing data quality, especially with AI?
Hmm.
There are a lot more things that we can do now, or do faster. Uh, and then there's also the data quality that we mentioned about for AI, for when
Hmm.
AI agents are the main users of data. What would that look like?
Yeah.
I guess how would data quality evolve and should be approached in that environment?
Yeah, I like the way you split that. There's like data quality with AI and data quality for AI.
Mhm.
And uh, uh, data quality with I think that everyone is just sort of figuring out how we as individuals can use AI for personal efficiency purposes. And so there are, again, like I go back to like the very most basic things you could do. If you have access today to a company approved AI chatbot, and maybe you could do some simple things like, oh, here's a long Jira ticket that describes like the saga of data quality triage all the way through to resolution. And if you were in the process um, of doing a retro to understand like what other classes of data quality problems you could solve in the future, um, throw throw that entire Jira thread into your company approved AI chatbot and say, make me a timeline, highlight the important turning points. If in your business you follow a practice for continuous improvement, like the 5 whys, where you keep asking why this happened, why this happened, why this happened, to get to the root cause, you can get an AI chatbot to help you with that. You can be much faster and might help you see around corners you couldn't see yourself. So I think that like there's some basic, like maybe it's not efficient, it's efficiency, but it's also brainstorming, you know,
Mm,
to help understand problems. I would like to think that in the near future that AI can do more of the heavy lifting for root cause analysis for data quality problems. But right now, like there's some simple things. Some simple thing goes wrong, you're like, yeah, is that producing team? They'll fix it. But the really complex problems still take a lot of human brain power, and I think we're far away from that. But maybe they are fewer and further between because we can handle the simple cases more easily.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it reminds me of how, like, software development with AI, it's kind of like we're scratching the surface right now.
Uh-huh.
But then, like, if you are trying to use LLM or AI for debugging your
Hmm.
existing code, that still isn't really possible. I think
Yeah.
doing it on the data side might actually be faster or easier because it's a lot more structured,
Hmm.
and uh, the part that you mentioned, I feel like one of the takeaways that I have here is that it's important to have this like strong framework and foundation of like the definitions of what data quality means,
Hmm.
regarding severity or requirements of the metrics and so on and so forth. And AI can really keep us honest of what aspects that we need to go into to investigate more when we're debugging.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I didn't answer the second half of your question though, which
Yeah,
was
yeah,
about
please.
data quality for AI. And for that, I'll just say that I believe that if your business already has a culture of high data quality and in curating high quality data sets for use in all the ways that a business uses data, there should not be a heavy lift for adopting to also incorporate high quality data in AI use cases. I think the problems tend to occur if you have a company that has not already prioritized high quality data, and now they're coming in and saying, oh, we have to support these AI use cases, and they're like, oh, our data is garbage. Well, you need to fix that for lots of reasons. AI is one of the
Yeah,
reasons.
for sure. Amazing. Well, June, thanks so much for your time today. I had a great chat with you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate all the wisdom that you shared around data quality. Yeah, I hope to see you around at another data event or online. I'll be continuing to following your newsletter. So thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me, Shinji. It was a great conversation.
Amazing. I'll talk to you soon. Bye
Okay,
bye.
bye.